first of all, I'll talk about the hat that I'm wearing. You don't see me in the hats too much. But this is about everyday Canadians standing up for the country. This is a company called, it's Emma and Liam, I'm sorry? Jack Pine, that's it. Jack Pine, they sent it over, so I want to thank Liam and Emma. But this is an example of how we need to unite, and we cannot let President Trump divide us. He'll be being sworn in a week, and then he's going to lay the tariffs on Canada. He's going to try to devastate our country. He's going to try to divide our country, and we cannot have division in our country. I understand that all around the country, everyone has their concerns, their jurisdictions from coast to coast to coast. But there's one thing that's more important than jurisdictions, is standing up for the country. Country comes first over anything, and we're going to continue to fight against these tariffs, and we're going to use every tool in our toolbox to make sure that happens. Hold on.
Others who don't want energy or hydro or oil or gas or critical minerals on the table. You guys can't even do a joint news conference at the end of the day. So aren't you already divided?
I totally disagree with that. I understand different jurisdictions around the country have their concerns. I understand that. But nothing is more important than standing united. Nothing's more important than keeping every tool in our toolbox. No matter if it's energy or other commodities, high-grade nickel from Ontario, grade aluminum from Quebec, potash from Saskatchewan, and these are the tools that we have. You don't negotiate through weakness, you negotiate through strength. And these are the tools that we need to move forward and make sure that we have tough retaliatory tariffs to defend the country. I'm sorry? Well, we will discuss that as we sit down with all the premiers and we sit down with the Prime Minister. I want to thank the Prime Minister for putting this meeting together, but I can tell you one thing, nothing's more important than the country. And when we're defending the country, we don't roll over. You're in a card game, you don't show your opposition your cards. If you have some aces, you hold on to those aces. But it's all part of negotiation tactics that President Trump wants to devastate Canada. He wants to devastate Canada through economic sanctions and tariffs. That's unacceptable. And I can tell President Trump that every American I speak to, and I speak to endless Americans, don't agree, no matter if they're Republican or Democrat. We can build a strong AmCan fortress, as I've always been saying, be the strongest, the wealthiest, and the safest countries in the world. But we need to work together. We can't be attacking each other. Thank you. One more question. Hold on 1 second. Go ahead. Yes. Well, we're going to discuss that. I've negotiated a lot of deals through the private sector and the public sector. I think everyone here and everyone across the country, you don't show your hand in the middle of a poker game to the opposition. That's what I'm saying. Everyone I respect, be it Premier Smith or any other premiers with their opinion, that's why we're coming together. But I can tell you one thing, you have to hold on to the tools that you have and make sure that they understand when they attack our country, when they attack our people, when they attack the jobs of the hardworking Canadians, you can't sit back and say, keep attacking. You have to hit back with every single tool we have in our toolbox, and that's the message to the premiers today. They may agree, they may disagree, but I can tell you one thing, there's nothing more important than our country and protecting jobs right across the country. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jets, we want to hear how they're doing this year in the NHL.
I don't want to jinx anything, but when the Stanley Cup comes home to Canada, it's coming to Winnipeg.
Okay, I like it.
Oh yeah, tout le monde en tant que Premier ministre est engagé avec le projet de lutter pour le Canada. Et pour moi, l'équipe du Canada, c'est mon priorité. Et puis mon priorité est le travailleur et puis les travailleuses au Manitoba. So yeah, we're united in a Team Canada approach, and we're all standing up for the average working person there. And in the process of thinking about this, I think it's really important for us as Canadians to recognize that through the stick handling of this, challenging period that Team Canada is going to be playing on, none of us should expect that we're going to go back to the status quo. Even Biden was doing protectionist things. And so the goal here should be for us to create space for ourselves as a country to get to where our economy is heading into the future. And so specifically, I'm using that old Wayne Gretzky analogy, go to where the puck is going. And I'm not talking about Wayne Gretzky as Prime Minister. I'm talking about Wayne Gretzky as captain of Team Canada back in the day when I was a kid. And so really, yes, we are going to have a strategy. We're going to have a response. We're going to stand up and, whatever the coming week brings, we're going to have a strong Canada first, Manitoba first response. But the thing we need to ask as Canadians is, what is the goal? What is the point that we're trying to steer towards? So yes, we can have a whole toolkit of policy options. We can have tax cuts, and we can have investments and supports for business. But what are those things trying to accomplish? And so for me, it's all about having a new economic strategy for Canada. And for me, the strategy should be about making this country one that builds things again, one that makes things again, one that makes tech stuff in particular, in addition to the mining and the energy and the manufacturing that we need. And we're going to have an election, from what you folks are telling me. So what more important question should we answer in an election for Canadians this year than who is best positioned to engage with the Trump administration, and what is Canada's economic strategy? Thanks so much. Absolutely. Like I said it in my comments already, and you guys should have been at the other scrum. And I wish I would have brought the great Canadian flags to the other scrum, because it's a way better backdrop than the Delta Hotel lobby restaurant. Yeah. So yeah, energy is part of it. The Canadian economy will continue to be powered by oil and gas for the foreseeable future. At the same time, provinces like ours are leading the charge towards a low-carbon economy. That's a huge, huge, important part of our economic growth in the future. And maybe if they didn't amplify my voice so much, you wouldn't have to shout so much at me. I think I've answered all the questions. I'm going to head into the meeting. We're going to have a great discussion here today. Team Canada is stronger than ever.
Ouais, je peux, mais c'est un petit peu haut pour moi. Ah oui, tout le monde, je pense qu'il y a des suggestions à faire qu'on a déjà fait, la conversation avec le gouvernement fédéral. Ça se passe depuis plusieurs semaines. Des suggestions, qu'est-ce qu'on peut mettre sur la liste, des demandes, qu'est-ce qu'on ne veut pas avoir sur la liste. Alors, on va continuer ce travail aujourd'hui. Oui, je pense que tout le monde est prêt à contribuer à la meilleure stratégie pour qu'on peut empêcher les tarifs ou les éliminer aussi vite que possible. Alors, ça c'est la conversation d'aujourd'hui. C'est quoi la meilleure stratégie et qu'est-ce qu'on peut chaque faire pour avancer une stratégie qui va avoir une réussite? Mais certainement, pour nous autres, c'est les produits de l'aquaculture, comme nos homards, les produits agriculture comme nos bleuets, des choses comme ça.
Premier Holt, what do you think about Premier Smith deciding to stay on vacation? Kind of an important time in our country. You think people will be here in person?
She's going to be participating virtually.
That's good enough for you?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
We didn't get a heads up, no. I'm interested in learning more. on veut que le travail soit uni. Alors, je pense que tous les premiers ministres font ce qu'ils peuvent avec leurs contacts, avec leurs relations. Alors, c'est une bonne chose de mettre la pression, de développer les relations, et on fait le travail pour le faire de plus en plus de façon coordonnée. Actually, we're having a lot of conversations with each other about who's willing to do what, where we're willing to compromise, and those conversations have been really cordial and productive, and we've made progress. And I think that we're going to continue to do that today, so that hopefully we can land on the final thing, because the clock is ticking down, and we only have a few days left.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Premier Furey, where are you on oil and gas exports from your province being used should we come to a trade war with the United States? Where are you on oil and gas exports?
Well, I've said all along, we need to be very united and very strategic in how, and very proportional in how we respond to any tariffs from the United States. I see energy as Canada's queen in this game of chess. We don't need to expose our queen too early. The opposition does need to know that the queen exists, but they don't need to know what we're going to do with the queen. So let's see what the tariffs actually are first, and have a proportional, but let me be very clear, a strong response to the United States. We need to, in no way, shape, or form, let the urgency of this economic and fiscal crisis jeopardize our national identity nor our national unity.
Thank you.
So let me address the Mar-a-Lago comment. We've said from the beginning we need to exercise our own geographic and political relationships in order to influence the political and personal sphere of influence of President Trump. So Ms. Smith thought that was a good idea in order to try to influence the decision makers around President Trump, and I'll let her speak to that herself. Again, I think it speaks to how I addressed the first question with respect to energy. The energy and the Canadian energy source to the United States is our queen in this game of chess, and we need to make sure that it is protected. And we can't. Anyone who plays chess, you never take the queen out too early. Doesn't say that you'll never use the queen, but you can't expose her and take her out too early. So I would put it back on you. Do you sacrifice the queen on the first move? We're still talking about pawns here. We're not talking about queens. Thanks very much.
Bonjour tout le monde. Écoutez, on a une réunion importante aujourd'hui. M. Trump menace dès la semaine prochaine de mettre en place des tarifs de 25% sur tous les produits canadiens qui sont exportés aux États-Unis. D'abord, il faut comprendre, essayer de comprendre son objectif, parce que si vous prenez, par exemple, l'aluminium qui est exporté du Québec vers les États-Unis, il n'y a pas vraiment de remplacement pour l'aluminium du Québec. Donc, ce que ça veut dire, c'est qu'il y aurait une augmentation de 25% des prix de l'aluminium pour les clients américains. Donc, les premiers perdants, ce seraient les clients américains. Donc, évidemment, là, notre premier choix, puis on va tout faire d'ici la semaine prochaine pour s'assurer qu'il n'y ait pas de tarifs. Par contre, si effectivement il y a des tarifs la semaine prochaine, bien, on veut aujourd'hui préparer différents scénarios de représailles. On ne se laissera pas faire. Le Canada doit réagir si les États-Unis mettent en place des tarifs. Puis il y a toutes sortes de façons de mettre en place des représailles et c'est ce qu'on va discuter aujourd'hui.
Monsieur Legault.
Bon. Actuellement, on n'exclut rien. Donc, il y a plusieurs scénarios qui sont envisagés, mais on n'exclut rien parce que c'est énorme l'impact qu'il pourrait y avoir avec des tarifs de 25 %. Oui, je donnais l'exemple de l'aluminium où Ça ne fera pas une grosse différence, à part que les Américains vont payer 25 % de plus, mais sur d'autres produits, bien, ça pourrait réduire la consommation américaine et donc réduire les exportations et donc avoir un impact sur les emplois au Québec. Donc, moi, je suis là pour défendre les emplois, défendre les Québécois, puis on va prendre toutes les mesures qui sont les plus appropriées. Donc, je ne suis pas contre aucune des mesures. Bien, écoutez, je ne veux pas entrer dans le détail des discussions qu'on aura aujourd'hui. Moi, je suis là pour défendre les intérêts des Québécois. Puis ce que je vous dis, c'est que s'il y a des tarifs de 25 % sur toutes les exportations de produits québécois vers les États-Unis, ça aura un impact négatif très grave sur l'économie du Québec. Et on est prêt à mettre en place des représailles et on regarde toutes sortes de scénarios.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du leadership du gouvernement fédéral dans ce dossier-là? On n'entend peu M. Trudeau publiquement. Vous en pensez quoi du leadership du fédéral dans le dossier de M. Trump et ses menaces?
Bon, bien évidemment, il y a une situation politique qui est assez particulière avec la démission de M. Trudeau. Donc, de là, l'importance que tout le monde travaille ensemble, les premiers ministres des provinces, des territoires, premier ministre du Canada, son équipe, le gouvernement fédéral, on doit tous travailler ensemble. Puis le premier choix, là, c'est qu'il n'y en ait pas de tarif. Il faut que tout le monde soit d'accord là-dessus. Il faut tout faire pour pas qu'il y ait de tarifs.
Est-ce que M. Trudeau en fait assez?
Okay, I think that the first choice, and it's true for Alberta, for Ontario, for Quebec, for everybody, is to have no tariff. It should be the top priority. Then, if next week or whenever there are some tariffs that are put in place, then we have to prepare a retaliation plan. We may have many scenarios. We'll discuss that today. And of course, I don't think we should do that on the public place. It should be internal. Merci tout le monde. Merci.
Premier Moe, could I ask you, David Aiken from Global, could I ask you just about this question? Is it important that President Trump know and understand that Canadian energy is at risk, if he decides to levy tariffs to the tune of 25%? Does Trump need to know that? You may not ever do it, but does he need to know he's putting Canadian energy access at risk?
Well, I would say that we, not only Americans, but North Americans need to have access not only to our oil and gas products, but all of our energy products. If we are truly going to continue to build what we aspire to build as individuals, whether we live south of the 49th parallel or north of the 49th parallel, but we need to ensure that we are not having this tariff conversation for any length of a period of time so that we can build towards that continental manufacturing security, that continental energy security, and that continental food security. We have done, I would say, a good job on the food security side to the point that we take it for granted. At times we have had, I would say, unnecessary conversations about the path of pipelines, whether they be to Tidewater or whether they be to our U.S. partners and our allies in the U.S. In years gone by. And so we maybe haven't done as good a job at working on that integrated economy and that integrated opportunity that we have to provide energy security to all North Americans. And I'm talking about continental energy security, not U.S. or not Canadian exclusively. And the same with respect to manufacturing security and providing the goods that we need as individuals and as communities. All of these industries and many more are so very integrated across the border. And so this discussion that we're having today needs to be beyond any escalating this tariff discussion. It needs to look beyond escalating any of the divisions that we have in this nation or on this continent and getting back to what we do well. There are other nations that are looking at continental energy security in North America. There are other nations that are looking at food security as our continent of North America goes, and what the investment attraction environment is in North America when it comes to manufacturing and investing in all of those industries. And I would say that not all of them have our best interests in mind, and so we need to pay attention to it, and I think that can start and be part of that discussion today. But it's certainly, we need to morph our discussion with President-elect Trump, very soon to be President Trump, to continuing to build on what has been successful in North America. And we've been successful when we focus on providing our own security, whether that be security in general, whether it be energy security, manufacturing security, or food security. Well, you know what? We will, find out what we are dealing with on January the 20th or shortly thereafter. I would say, is there ever a time when we have escalated a broad-based tariff discussion to the point of taking nothing off the table or looking at taxing Canadian goods, goods that Canadians are producing and creating wealth not only for their family but for our community and more broadly for each of us through the various programs that we have across the nation. And so taxing Canadian-produced goods in the form of export tariffs would be not only counterproductive to this entire conversation. We need to be talking about how we remove tariffs not only in North America but around the world, but having a conversation about increasing them and increasing this conversation into more of a broad-based tariff war is not good for Canada. Canada does not do well in that environment. I would say North Americans will not do well. All Americans and Canadians are going to pay more for everything that we ultimately purchase. So that's the first reason why we should not be considering export tariffs or taxing things that Canadians are producing. The second is that it just isn't going to be conducive to bringing this conversation back to where it needs to be. North America, providing our perspective and our opportunity to work alongside our largest ally, our largest trading partner, the U.S., in providing that continental energy security, food security, and manufacturing security. If we are not working towards that, you're counterproductive in the conversation.
Premier Moe, have you modeled out how many jobs will be lost in your province if Trump does go ahead with this tariff?
We're having those meetings now directly with industry. Our Minister of Trade and Export Development is having those meetings actually today and throughout this week and over the course of the next number of days as to what the actual impact is. I think the initial impact that you can think is you look at what your exports are to the U.S. and times it by 0.25 and you'll find out what that is. For us, it's about $30 billion. We have diversified around the world, very much focused on diversifying our exports around the world. We've increased our export value drastically over the last 15 years, but we've also diversified it to the point that we send about 65% of our exports in Saskatchewan to the U.S. Our imports from the U.S. are about 80% of what we actually import into the province. And so we can't really import a lot more. And we're very much, I guess, from a percentage perspective, at I would say a trade deficit with the U.S. But they are still and remain our largest trading partner and one of our greatest allies. And we have been on the phone with many policy decision makers associated with the incoming Trump administration over the last number of weeks, like my subnational counterparts that are attending the meeting today have been, and I think we should be thankful collectively for the extensive list of contacts that we have and the work that is happening there. At the end of the day, we are going to need an individual in the Prime Minister's chair that has a mandate equivalent to President Trump and to sit down and bring this discussion to a head. That's maybe associated, but certainly an important discussion is I think when you see the increases that have happened in the equalization formula are starting to skew. The equalization formula there is to ensure that Canadians can be treated equally from a tax perspective, can be treated equally from the services that they access. When you look at some of the the tax incentives that are happening today in equalization receiving provinces versus maybe some providing provinces that are unable to match that same tax base, there is there is a conversation to be had. I would say that's not a political or a partisan conversation either. I would say that it should be a review that is done of the formula and done of the currently where we are. I don't think anyone is opposed to being a part of ensuring that you can access healthcare services equally across Canada, regardless of where you might be. I don't think anyone is opposed to attempting to, have somewhat similar taxation systems across the nation, and no one is opposed to, being a Canadian first. However, I don't think anyone's opposed to looking and doing a review of a program over time to ensure that it's fair to all Canadians, those that are contributing and those that may be receiving.
Premier, Donald Trump said the U.S. does not need anything from Canada, but I mean, Saskatchewan uranium, for example, is incredibly important for American energy production. Have you or your officials gotten through to Donald Trump or tried to get through to him?
Yeah, I've said this a number of times, is, with President-elect Trump, we need to take what he says very, very seriously. However, not every opportunity do you have to take precisely what he says literally. We are in the midst, and likely going to be in the midst of, for a period of time, of, various negotiations with our largest ally and our largest trading partner. So when President-elect Trump, makes statements like that, I'm not going to comment on them. What I would comment on is I know that from my perspective, and quite likely what is fact, is the economy across the 49th parallel. Our North American economy is incredibly integrated. You see that, in Ontario and Quebec in the manufacturing sector. We see that and have very much engaged with our U.S. counterparts, most recently when the steel tariffs were on how many times a piece of steel actually crosses the border back and forth until it ultimately is made into a piece of pipe that goes in at Cushing's, Oklahoma, because we're not building enough pipelines in this nation, or ends up in car parts or ag equipment parts or mining parts. So it is absolutely an integrated economy, and to say that that we don't need to work with the Americans to add value to the products that we're purchasing and actually selling and providing to the world is an incorrect statement. And I would say the same is true for products that flow from the south to the north. It's an integrated economy. It's our greatest strength, and we need to work together as Canada's 13 premiers and our current outgoing Prime Minister and whoever will be coming in, and I commit to working with both in the best interests of Canadians on this entire discussion, which will morph over time, and so we're in that for the entirety of it. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Very pleased to be here with my colleagues, Premier Akeeagok as well as Premier Simpson. We think this is an incredibly important day, and I'll also start by honoring that we're on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people. And we're very happy to be here today for an incredibly important conversation. I want to thank my colleagues who have just taken on the role as chair of Northern Premiers, and so they've given me an opportunity to share some opening words with you. I guess I'll start by saying, look, I think that from my perspective, I've said all along that we have to prepare for what's coming next week. There was not any doubt that we would be dealing with tariffs. I think it was always about trying to minimize the impact after the initial conversation points that were made by the President-elect. We know that tariffs are going to hurt both countries. It's very clear. It's going to have a negative impact. That was exactly the message that I conveyed to Donald Trump Jr. When I met with him in North Carolina in December, that this was not good for either one of our countries, and that there's an opportunity for us to prosper working together as independent, sovereign nations. We know we've always been good neighbors. We've played by the rules as Canadians. But now it's time to ensure that we prepare ourselves for next week. And so I think that will be an incredibly important part of the work that will happen today. I think I would also just like to mention, I know my counterparts will speak, my colleagues will speak specifically about the work that we've always been doing as Northern leaders, whether it be the work that we've been doing or the leaders that have come before us. This is a moment in time for the North and the Arctic. I mean, the conversations that are now topical for everybody to cover here today are the things we've been talking about for years and years, and our predecessors have talked about this. So whether, it's the importance of what we can contribute to a modern supply chain around critical minerals, as we see investment from the U.S. and Canada coming into the North, or it's the conversation we've had around defense, or the vulnerability of the Arctic. These are all incredibly important things. We've had good support from our colleagues at the table. You know, and media, that every communique that's come out over the last number of years, we get support from coast to coast to coast. But now everybody knows that this isn't just important for our country, but it will define the relationship with the U.S., and this will be an important part of the negotiations that happen between our countries. So I just want to also touch on the fact that I want to thank Premier Legault. I think for all of us, we're proud every day that we watch the horrendous situation in LA, but we watch these brave individuals from Quebec with their super scoopers making sure that people in LA are safe. And I think what I would say to that is, isn't that just embody who we are as Canadians, stepping up at this time when things are quite difficult between our countries. So I want to commend those folks from Quebec, and I know that we've offered up help, and many of our colleagues have. But that's just symbolic of what kind of neighbors we've always been. So with that, I want to hand it over to my colleague, to Premier Akeeagok, and as well Premier Simpson. Thank you.
Ya, ko yana mi sivulutti ko yana mi tiapu ngata utavani kata unagama tana primar juang utiligo katima kutigini atavo sivuluttinen. First off, I want to say thank you as well. I'm very honored to be able to be here with you all, especially with my very good friends, with Ranj and RJ as well. We know the potential impact the tariffs will have, not only across the south, but right into the north as well. We already see the highest cost of living. We see the challenges across the north, and we know the potential tariffs that we know are coming will impact all of us. And it's so important to show the unity as Canadians and the opportunities that are there that I had mentioned earlier. Nunavut provides incredible critical mineral right now. We look at the iron ore mine in Nunavut that supplies the world with the purest iron ore deposit that is the biggest GDP provider. It provides about 25% of the GDP to the territory. It employs thousands of Canadians from across the country that will potentially be impacted as well. And speaking to them is something that is really concerning. But it just shows you the connection we have between the north and south and the challenge that's before us, but also the opportunities that are there. The real focus I really wanted to push is the work that we are doing on infrastructure and opportunity for Canada to take a leading role in taking nation building. And from that viewpoint, there's an incredible push, and as Ranj just mentioned, there's been strong support between our colleagues from coast to coast to coast of expediting and investing in NATO's 2%. And we really see that as an opportunity specifically to the Arctic, to the north, to do exactly that, to build nation-building projects. The one project that I would really want to highlight is the Grays Bay Road and Port project specifically. That could both serve the Navy, the Canadian Coast Guard, it's right on the Northwest Passage, but also unlock incredible critical mineral potential within our territory.
Should Canada cut off critical mineral supply to the U.S. for export tariffs?
Pardon? Perhaps I'll just finish and allow my colleague here to speak as well, then we'll be open to questions as well. And so with that in mind, I really think it's important when we start looking at these investments that we invest in our communities. It's healthy communities that shape our sovereignty to the Arctic. There's been global attention, as we've seen with our very good friends and our family across in Greenland, and the opportunity where we do see, but it requires investments in our communities to create healthy and prosperous communities, and as such, we really see that opportunity utilizing the NATO 2% to invest in infrastructure, which we know is much needed. So with that, perhaps I'll let my colleagues speak, and then we'll be open for questions after.
Thank you. Let's see. There we go. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. I look forward to these meetings today. I think it's very important that we come together as political leaders from across Canada, given this threat that we are facing from a foreign actor. But I think that it's also important for us as Canadians, as political leaders, as business leaders, as members of the public, to take this opportunity and reflect and ask ourselves, why are we in this situation? Why do we have an economy that can be crushed on a whim by a president? For years, we have been fueling the American economy with oil. We've been fueling American innovation with our critical minerals. Why don't we have that capacity to refine that oil here in Canada? Why don't we have that pipeline infrastructure to take that to markets around the world? Why aren't we refining more critical minerals here in Canada? We need to invest in infrastructure. We don't even have the roads to go access the resource-rich areas in Canada to take advantage of our natural advantages. I am big on partnerships, and I know we're always going to have a strong economic relationship with the United States, but we can't be reliant on the United States. We need to reduce that reliance by investing in Canada, in projects that will allow all Canadians to fully participate and contribute to a thriving economy. That's why we talk about these nation-building projects. It's not just refining capacity and pipelines. We need infrastructure in the north so that we can contribute to a strong and prosperous Canada that is not reliant on the United States. That's why I talk about the Mackenzie Valley Highway, the Slave Geological Province Road that would connect to Grays Bay, give us a base on the Northwest Passage. These are the big projects that we as a country need to come together and put our minds to and put to action. Because if we don't, we are passing the same problem on to our children and grandchildren. In 50 years, I don't want the Premier from the Northwest Territory to be up here talking about the same problem, how we are threatened by the United States and their economic power. So I think that there's plenty of work to be done now, in the present, in the coming weeks, but we really need to put our minds to the long term. Thank you. You know, I look forward to these meetings today so that we can have those conversations as premiers. Thank you.
No, I think that right now, let's see if I can do this here. I think what we're probably not going to do is negotiate on the floor in the middle of this media scrum. I think right now what we're doing is we're going to the table. I think the first key thing that we want to see today is that we want to actually have clarification on what the operational plan is, what the roles and responsibilities are. I mean, we had an FMM meeting early in December. It was a good meeting. We rolled out a plan, or Minister LeBlanc and others rolled out a plan that they put together in a short period of time. I need to say this on behalf of Yukoners to you. I wear this responsibility as well as my federal counterparts. As Canadians, we have to look in the mirror and think, in 7 days, we put together $1 billion plan to deal with our border and fentanyl, and think of the tens of thousands of people that we've lost in this country in every province and territory for the last number of years. And a tweet was the catalyst for us to actually all come together as a country to deal with a problem that's like devastating our cities and communities. So I want to put that aside. We need to take a look in the mirror, every one of us, when it comes to that. But no, we're in a position where we're coming today. We want to know what the plan is so that we can wake up tomorrow, or at least that's my prerogative, and my colleagues may have unique positions on this. But I want to understand, after the 20th, how we're going to engage with the U.S. What's the role as the premiers? What's the Prime Minister's role going to be? What is Minister LeBlanc, Minister Jolie, and Minister Champagne going to do? Let's be coordinated, because as much as we all have had some criticism as premiers over the last little while, that there has been maybe some disjointed activity, part of what we've asked for is a blueprint on how to actually engage, and that's what today is about. So let's make sure today we have clarity about what everybody's roles are. Do you want to jump in? I'm good, or one of you guys can. Look, I'll start and just say this. I think everybody seems to be coming to the table. The tone that I see is everybody's going to come to the table. I don't think that anybody today, at least from our standpoint, is going to come out and lay out a list of items. But I think that what you're seeing is all premiers from all territories and provinces are coming. They know what worked before. That's been reflected in our meetings at COF. They know that having those tools in the toolbox have been effective previously. We know that it can be a significant impact. We're all here to make sure. I'm here to make sure that jobs in the economy of the Yukon are protected, but I'm also here to make sure that I collectively, arm in arm with my colleagues, to make sure that Canadian jobs and business and economy is protected. So collectively, I think, we will come to the table, and I think probably everybody's ready to lean in. That's my sense at this particular time.
Thank you so much. We have to wrap it up. That's all the time that we have.
Donald Trump is getting sworn in on Monday. Speaking plainly, how cooped are we right now in the country?
Well, I mean, as you know, Catherine, we don't know. We know that there's something's coming down. We know there's, I think, what we've been informed, I think this is accurate, that there's 100 orders going to be signed off right away. We don't know what the list looks like. We know that this could be really significant. We know that the business leaders in the country are incredibly concerned. You've seen some output today. We know that the projected impact is significant. We know that this could mean, significant impact to our GDP and how many quarters it lasts. So, yeah, this is not a good situation. This is what he led with. He has stuck to it, and our job right now is to minimize the impact of what rolls out. And if it's about him sticking to his word on what he's going to do, how do we curtail that in as quick amount of time as possible? And there's people that are in the room today at the federal level and provincial level that have been through this a bit before, and we just need to be able today to have the appropriate response and have the tools in the toolbox to go at it. Thank you.